Hello MUCT 113L class. This is 113L third quarter of the first year of ear training for the lost ear students. So this is your remote lecture. Sorry, actually it says week 1 here. This should be for week 2, midweek 2. All right, let's start with warming up. We're going to warm up all the scales in this order. Okay, we're just going to go straight through them. Major, harmonic minor, melodic minor, natural minor, and chromatic. All right, let's see what we got here. Do, 2, 3, 4. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, le, ti. Ti, le, sol, fa, me, re, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, te, le, sol, fa, me, re, do, re, mi, fa, sol, le, te, do, te, le, sol, fa, me, re, do, di, re, re, mi, fa, fi, sol, si, la, li, ti, do, ti, te, la, le, sol, se, fa, mi, me, re, ra, do. I think I ended up a little out of tune there at the very end, but we'll work on this as a class as we work next week in learning the new scales and doing all 10 of them at the same time. All right, but for now, let's jump in. We're going to review a couple of the new concepts that we dealt with in last Friday's class. There were a couple of new things that we learned, and there's going to be a new concept that I am going to introduce today in this remote lecture. Okay, the first thing we did, open up your Berkowitz books. Open up your sight singing book, Berkowitz book, to page 43. We are now in section 2 of the Berkowitz book. And up until now, we've been dealing with the same 3 clefs, pretty much from the beginning of fall quarters class: bass clef, treble clef, and alto clef. As you recall, the alto clef is called a C clef, and a C clef basically tells you where middle C is. So where the notch is, where this little space is here, tells you middle C is there. Okay. Like all the clefs, even though we don't think of the bass and treble clefs as being movable clefs, all clefs are movable. They can be moved on any line and any space, although it is most common for them to be on a line rather than a space, though exceptions do exist. So the alto clef, or the C clef on the 3rd line, can be moved, and it is most commonly moved, or most commonly encountered, here on the 4th line from the bottom, putting middle C there instead. And in Friday's class, as you recall, if you were there, we practiced reading with the tenor clef. The clef, like anything else, is fairly easy. If you just remember, if you know where do is, then everything is just proportions from there. Everything is just relates to where do is. And since we use movable do solfege, this is pretty simplified. All right, so let's go ahead and Berkowitz page 43, look at number 183. We're in the key of G major here. First syllable, sol. 6/8 time. Let's give this one a try. A nice slow 2. 1 and 2, E and. Sol, la, ti, do, sol, la, sol, fa, sol, do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do, re, mi, fa, sol, mi, do, sol, la, sol, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Good, and if you were not here on class Friday, or if you forgot what we talked about, one thing we're going to emphasize beginning in this quarter is accuracy, not just, of course, of the notes and the syllables and the intonation, which we've been doing pretty well up until now, but also accuracy as far as dynamics and articulations are concerned. And as you note in 183, there were a lot of staccatos in that example. We're going to attempt to do them. All right, in number 184, Martial, we're in G minor here. Do, re, mi. Okay, and notice that there are a couple of different dynamic markings along with some crescendos. Not too much in the way of articulations, a couple of staccatos. So let's see if we can do all those. All right, this starts on do, re, mi, re, do. Okay, let's give this one a try. 1 and 2, E and 3 and 4. Me, do, ti, re, do, ti, do. Do, do, do. Mi, fa, sol, le, sol, fa, mi, re. Re, re, re. Sol, fa, mi, re, do, te, le. Excuse me. Fa, mi, re, do, ti, la, ti, sol. Do, mi, re, fa, mi, re, do, ti, do, 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 do. Excuse me, I apologize. Kind of choked right through there. Of course, if you continued onward, that's perfectly fine. You probably would have got there about a measure ahead of me. Okay. But notice we did make it a point to do the dynamics and articulations properly. All right, let's do a couple more. Turn the page. Page 44, number 185. You'll notice here in section 2, the melodies are starting to get longer and more complex. And by the way, that will also be reflected in your systematic dictation assignments as well. If you look at the syllabus, remember that I mentioned and I've written in the syllabus that we're doing fewer dictations or fewer examples in each assignment, but they are longer and a little bit more complex. All right, so let's go ahead and sing this one. Do. Okay, there are 2 dynamic levels here. Piano, then forte, and then a decrescendo back down to piano. Okay, watch the outline of triads and 7th chords, particularly the 5-7 chord, that are pretty blatant and obvious through this one. All right. 1 and 2, E and do, sol, mi, mi, re, re, do, re, sol, fa, fa, mi, mi, re, sol, mi, la, fa, re, sol, mi, do, fa, mi, mi, re, do, sol, mi, mi, re, re, do, re, sol, fa, fa, mi, mi, re, mi, sol, do, mi, re, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, sol, sol, fa, mi, re, do. And you notice I did do the poco ritardando there at the end. Generally, of course, unless it's written, you would never, of course, slow down to the last note, especially in a decrescendo like that. But in that case, they actually told you to do it in the poco ritardando. Okay, one more, 186. 186, we're back in alto clef. Remember now, we're in alto clef. D major, D major. So we begin on Mi. Okay, there are crescendos and there are pretty significant dynamic differences here. So let's get this nice and accurate. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Mi, 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 sol, fa, fa, re, 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 fa, mi, mi. Do, do, mi, re, re, do, ti, la, sol, la, ti, do, re, mi, 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 sol, fa, fa. Fa, fa, la, sol, sol, la, fa, sol, mi, fa, re, ti, sol, do, re, mi, la, fa, sol, mi, fa, re, ti, sol, do, do, mi, do, 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 do. And there's all kinds of really, really great things going on in number 186. First, you heard the patterns in the first, the sequence going on, but it was an interesting sequence. Remember how we've always talked about this. When you have a straight sequence, you know, repeating it one time at a different pitch level but with the exact melodic contour is cool. A second time starts to get a little predictable. So as you can see at the very beginning here, they change it up just enough by taking the downbeat, the quarter note at the beginning of the sequence, away to make it a little more different. And then toward the end, there was some really cool stuff with the echo, the la, fa, sol, mi, fa, re, ti, sol, do, re, mi, and then kind of the same thing at a lower dynamic level. So a little bit of a variation or a sequence with dynamic level. So all kinds of wonderful stuff in this melody. But for now, let's go on to the Kazez book. And we're going to introduce one of the new concepts that I mentioned today. Go to page 68. To page 68 in your Kazez book. We're moving to a new chapter. We finished chapter 4 up in Friday's class. And chapters 1 through 4 had a pattern of chapter 1 was simple meter, chapter 2 was compound, chapter 3 was simple, chapter 4 was compound. The simple meters, chapters 1 and 3 just increased in the complexity of the simple meter from 2 to 4, the complexity of the compound meter. Now we're back to simple meter, so we're continuing the pattern, except we are changing one of the basic things about simple meter, one of the standards. We have taken it for granted so far that in simple meter the quarter note is the unit of the beat. 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 6/4, 8/4 time. Always the denominator being 4. Now we are going to change that. Instead of the quarter note receiving the unit of the beat, now it will be the half note receiving the beat. Okay. If you're familiar with meters like cut time, okay, you've probably seen that. That is when the half note receives the beat. Okay. Another way to write that would be 2, 2. Okay, and so the numerator and denominator still have the same meanings. The 2 on the top refer to the number of beats in the measure, and the 1 on the bottom refers to what gets the beat. So the 2, or the half note, receives the beat, and then there are 2 of them. Okay, and at first glance, of course, this will resemble 4/4 time because it has the same amount of materials, it has the same number of quarter notes, but it's not counted in the same way, whereas in 4/4 time, the quarter note receives the beat. Now the half note receives the beat, so something like this is actually now the first level of subdivision. T, 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 etc. All right, so let's try out page 68 in the Kazez book. And let's start with number 125. Number 125. Okay, they're just showing you how these are built. These are actually very easy. These are, from the first week or two of ear training, back in intro, in fall quarter. The thing that makes a simple meter with the half note as the unit of the beat more difficult is it just looks different. Okay? You look at the notes, they appear to be very slow, they look like the notes will last forever, where in fact it's going to take, depending on the tempo marking, with the half note as the beat, it might go by very quickly. So let's try number 125. 1, 2, 3, 4. T, 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 T. Okay, and in a meter like this, like 4-2, you are going to see this, which you don't see very often. So a whole note dotted, okay, receives 6 beats if you were in a 4-4 or an 8-4 time, but it's equal to 6 quarter notes, okay, or 3 beats in this case. Let's try number 126. Watch the ties across the bar line. Here we go. This is an anacrusis as well. Comes in on beat 4. 1, 2, 3. T, 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 T. All right. Going on to 127, 3-2 time. So a dotted whole note will take up the entire measure. 3 beats and we're in. 1, 2, 3. T, T, T. T, 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 T. Good. And now, in a 4-2 meter, you may wonder, well, what does a note look like that takes the entire measure? And you can do it this way. This is sometimes how it's done. But that would be similar in 4-4 to notating the entire measure that way, when in fact you could just do that. And so there is a note that exists that is equal to 2 whole notes, and that is the brev. The brev. In your book you can see they're going to give you a couple of different ways. It can either look like this, kind of like a hinged box, or it could look like this, with the brackets on each side. And nowadays this is probably the more common representation because the square it looks weird. It looks a little bit more like a rest sometimes, or a hollow rest, and some people might be confused. So it looks like a whole note, and these are, I guess, just like size designations treated double length. Okay, and so this is equal to 2 whole notes, and it's called a brev. Okay, interestingly, the whole note also has another name, the semi-brev, or the half-brev. And brev is exactly what it looks like, brief or fast. Originally, this used to be the shortest note that was used in early chant and mensurated music, meaning the first metrical music. And nowadays, it's the longest note that we ever use, so things have changed since then. So let's give it a try. 128 is the last one of these we'll do, so just when you see that brev, it's 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. T, 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 T. Okay. Alright, so that's enough of the kazes for right now. We'll, of course, continue on with that in Friday's class. Although Friday's class is going to have a couple of new things in it, we may not get to that, but we'll see. Alright, and the final, this is the new concept, or semi-new concept that we introduced in class last Friday, was pre-harmonic dictation 1. Okay, just a review of what we talked about. Remember, pre-harmonic dictation 2, which is where we were before. We dictated bass lines and indicated in the spaces underneath the quality of the chord. Okay, whatever the quality of the chord I happen to play. I have been playing everything in root position. I've been playing everything in root position, and I will continue to do that as we move to pre-harmonic dictation 1. Okay. And it's going to be the same. There will be the bass lines that you follow. They will still all be in root position, except now you are going to identify them by chord symbols. Okay. We did a few of these, I think one of these examples in class on Friday, but that's what would happen. And right now you don't have to worry about inversions or anything. That will be pre-harmonic dictation 2, which I'm likely going to spend some time on next week, or in Friday's upcoming class. But right now you don't have to worry about it, about inversions, because all of these will be in root position. So, if you know the bass note, you know the chord. Okay? Even if you were not able to catch what the quality of the chord was, you're still going to know because it's going to be in root position. However, this should not stop you from listening to chord qualities, because as we mentioned at the end of last Friday's class, if we had a note like this, for instance, sol, okay, now if it's in root position, we know, 5 chord, but if we didn't know it was in root position, we would have a number of options, okay, but not every note fits in every single chord, okay? And this is an example we made. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, those are all the chords, the diatonic chords in major mode. If you have a G in the bass, you know that it can't be any one of these chords. Okay, so eliminate what doesn't have a G in the bass, or doesn't have a G in it at all. Okay, the 7 chord, that doesn't have a G in it, in C. It's B, D, F, that's out. How about 6? A, C, E, that's not going to work. 5, yeah, the 5 will work. 4, that's F, F, A, C, that won't work. 3, E, G, B, that's a possibility. 2, D, F, A, ain't going to work. And 1, Do, Mi, Sol, or C, E, G. Okay, so you've already eliminated more than half of the possibilities just by knowing the bass line. Okay, and that's without even knowing what the quality of the chord was. Okay, now you hear the chord is major. Okay, well, what can you eliminate now? 3, because 3 is minor. And you have only 2 options. Okay, so you can reduce the possibilities way, 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 way down just by using these basic methods, by knowing the bass and by knowing the quality of the chord. For now, of course, it doesn't matter. We know it's 5 because I told you it's going to be in root position. But if you didn't know, if it was going to be in an inversion, the easiest way to tell the difference between 1 and 5, what does 1 have that 5 doesn't? Do. What does 5 have that 1 doesn't? Ti. And those are the first and second most important notes of the solfege scale, do and ti. So if you can hear either do or ti, or the absence of do or ti, you automatically have it. So if you hear ti, no, it's got to be 5. Okay, so for right now, we'll just deal with it in root position. We're going to do a set of 3 of these. We're going to do 3 of these. This is your homework for this. I mean, you already have homework, of course, but this will be your proof of attendance. Okay, I'm going to start doing that this quarter to make sure that you guys are actually watching these videos and participating in them, because it really is important. I had you do it 1 or 2 times last quarter, but I'm going to start doing this every of the remote midweek lectures. You'll need to turn in something. That will be the equivalent of your attendance. If you don't turn anything in, then you lose your attendance point for that day. That's how we're going to do it. So there are going to be 3 examples here. There'll be 3 harmonic dictations using pre-harmonic dictation 1 standards that we're going to do. And then we'll review them in class, and we can kind of see if we're on the right track and if we're ready to introduce pre-harmonic dictation 2. So let's start with our bass clef. So get out some staff paper. Always, just like we did with pre-harmonic dictation 2, I'm always going to give you the first one for free. It's going to be do in the bass, and the major chord in the space, which in this case now is 1. And we're going to do 5. We're going to do 5 of these, okay? So I'm going to play it through 2 times. I'm going to play it through 2 times. Of course, you can pull the slider back on the YouTube video and listen to it as many times as you want to. But go through it, do the best you can, sing with the bass to see if you can figure it out. Get the qualities of the chords to make sure that you know those, and then put down the chord symbols. Remember, if you run into like a 7, for instance, don't forget to put the little diminished circle there. Otherwise, it would be a minor 7, which is not a diatonic chord in major mode. All right, let's give this one a try. This will be number 1. I'll mark each of these as we go. Okay, here's key of C major, so you can get that in your ear. All right, here's the first one. Ready, and. Okay, let's hear it again. Ready, and. All right, that was number 1. Let's get number 2 set up. Actually, number 2 is going to be set up the exact same way as number 1 was. It will be do in the bass, 1 in the space below. 5 chords total. Okay, and this will be a different 5. We're going to start off the same way. Here we go. Let's give this one a try. Ready, and. Okay, again. Ready, and. Okay, for number 3. We'll start off the same way, but we are going to add 1 more chord at the end. So there are 6. Okay, so 6 chords in this example. Okay, and as before, focus on the bass line, focus on the qualities of the chords. Okay, one thing that you can do actually, you can reverse engineer this. You don't, sometimes the bass notes jump around a little bit and they can be hard to determine, but knowing the quality of the chord will also help you. So if you're not sure, for instance, let's say in the second to the last chord, you're saying like, man, I can't hear if that's re or if that's do. Okay. Well, knowing the quality of the chord will help you, because hearing, if you hear a minor chord, for instance, well, you know, probably going to be re, because it's probably going to be a minor 2 chord, much more likely. And if you hear a major chord, you say probably likely that it's going to be Do, because of course root position chord on Do is the 1 chord. So you can hit this from both ways. Uses and as many ways of looking at it to try and get yourself into the correct answer. All right, let's try this one. 6 chords. Here we go. Ready? That one's a little weirder than normal, but not too bad. Let's do it again. Ready? And... Alright, that's numbers 1, 2, and 3. Be sure that you're writing them on a blank piece of paper, or at least part of a piece of paper with your name on it that you can turn in. You don't need to turn them in at the beginning of class. I'll take them at the end of class or after we review them in next Friday's lecture together. Okay? Alright, we'll see you guys Friday. Looking forward to it.